Jatt comes through once again. I do have to credit Wiggily with a lot of that game. He got the first 2 kills for CLG. He kept looking, right? It was actually the Rek'Sai who, sure, they had limited tools, but he found every fight.
Yeah,
is what it felt like.
He MacGyvered those tools into something usable and found initiation after initiation onto an Ezreal.
I mean, the final pick is a flashless Rek'Sai initiating on a 40% CDR Iceborne Gauntlet Ezreal. So riddle me that, right? You know, he found a lot of different engages here, and I think he did play it out very well with kind of what they had drafted for themselves. You know, he didn't get a ton done on the Rek'Sai early, but he was still able to have a strong game because he found the small windows when they did present themselves. The pick outside of the base when, you know, Arrow gets tagged with the Q, bursting him 100-0. The pick in mid lane without even having flash, and even trading his flash earlier to set up for that. So certainly does deserve credit.
All right, checking in with the bans here after those first couple have been done. It's Karma and Irelia, the next 2 bans for the side of OpTic Gaming, while CLG decide they do not want Meteos on the Jarvan here again. They saw what he was able to do with it there the last game. And also, as expected, Yuumi, the final red side ban, you don't want to give that away for free. OpTic immediately locking the Aatrox.
Aatrox for Dhokla. This is a risk by CLG, saying that the Jarvan and the initiation it provides is higher value than Dhokla's best pick.
Yep.
Yeah, it is pretty interesting to actually see that go over, but at the same time, they will be able to very likely trade this for the Sejuani, really S-tier jungler here. This is going to give them a lot of strong engage in and of themselves, and Ruin is also going to have a pick to answer Aatrox. You know, he is blind picking this, you know, on the side of Dhokla. So, you know, Ruin is someone that has so many champions that he is comfortable playing. I would not be surprised to see something even along the lines, you know, of the Renekton, which he has played. Right. I think that's a strong matchup into it, and he has performed quite well on it. Pairs up very well with Sejuani also.
Yeah, Ruin has played 11 unique champions across 19 games this split, including tiebreakers, which is the most unique champions of any player who was in the series today. So if you are going to have a guy to counterpick the key pick from the enemy's top laner, it would be Ruin. Still have to see how that plays out, though.
Along with that Sejuani, we're also going to see Azir here picked up again. PowerOfEvil played it in game number 1. Sees no reason to fix what ain't broken technically, because they did blow up their opponent's Nexus technically in game number 1. So they're going to be locking that one in here again. On the side of OpTic, the traditional Sejuani counter coming out in the trundle there for Meteos, as the Sylas is grabbed there for mid lane.
And it's going to be Camille top, so he's not actually going to go to the Renekton. This will be Camille. Also pairs up incredibly well with Sejuani, another melee champion to help stack that Sejuani passive. You have incredibly strong engage to set up those ganks for the Sejuani. And Grasp Camille actually has such strong trading patterns into the Aatrox.
Yeah.
You go forward, you get your auto attack for the passive physical damage shield, and you're able to win almost every one of those trades. So this is certainly an advantageous matchup for Rune. And you can see that CLG has already remedied their engage issues, right? You have Camille, you have Sejuani. That already is fantastic.
Yeah, they're going in. This is also the counter pick that Ruin used against Aatrox when they played Echo Fox late in the split, and he had an extremely strong game there.
Now, game number 1 to me felt like both sides just had cold feet. You said it, Jatt. We saw 3 kills by 27 minutes. That is an incredibly slow game of League of Legends. And just by the draft here from CLG in the first half so far, I'm hoping they're wanting to put the pedal to the metal here a little bit more as we see what's coming out. It's Ezreal and Tahm Kench bans. That gives me even more hope. They're saying, nope, you are not allowed to play this low interaction bottom lane. OpTic are also going to ban away the Braum.
I think there was an opportunity to play some mind games with the Ezreal, especially after they picked Arrow 3 times in a row, being like, you want to play Ezreal again against a Camille? Good luck, right?
Be my guess.
We'll just keep killing you. Build the Zonies and a QSS is not going to help you. But they actually do ban it out, I think, because Arrow was having a strong game up until that point, and it also allows them to try and pick something more lane-dominant bot.
So it is going to be the Varus here for Stixxay. You know, Draven is up. I'm not sure if he would feel comfortable to actually go that direction here against the Varus, which is a pretty strong laning champion. Can be difficult to actually navigate that. But Draven is certainly something that they are worried about, you know, with Arrow, and with a lot of his most played already taken off the table. You know, his 3 most played are all gone. Draven would be the pick he would go to next, I would think.
The natural thing that's left, Arrow.
Yeah, there we go.
Just do it.
Lock it in. All right, there we go. Whirling death for OpTic. OpTic Gaming. Draven locked in the bottom lane. It was the first ban from CLG in game 1. They decided to let it through, and OpTic says, thank you, much obliged.
Yeah, Sivir, Xayah, Ezreal, those are his 3 most played. With those all off the table, you know, it was going to be pushing him down in the champion pool. Draven is his next most popular. And Draven and Morgana, I think this is actually really nice. This is setting up for a very lane-dominant lane once again. We saw the advantages that they got with the Bard. Morgana also answers some of the initiation here from Sejuani very well. But Zyra would actually be a throwback to the early weeks. Biofrost did play this, and I do think that some of those ranged poke champions are very effective into Morgana because you're able to poke off the Black Shield very, very easily. This is a matchup I used to always use in solo queue into Morgana. It's actually incredibly good. You can block the binding with your plants. You drop a seed at your foot and throw a root for an instant plant. You can poke off the Black Shield with your Q plants. It's actually a really good matchup.
And once you're going into these team fights, look at the composition from OpTic Gaming. Melee top laner, melee jungler that can only run at you, melee mid laner. These guys are walking into a straight up forest of stranglethorns and plants and vines, and Biofrost has so much control potential in these team fights.
Yeah, I really like the composition that CLG's been able to put together, getting their choice against the Aatrox, getting the Zyra into the Morgana, even though it is pushing down the support champion pools a fair bit, is something Biofrost has some comfort on. For OpTic, I think it's about the execution. Can Meteos get Dhokla going, trundle alt the Sejuani in every team fight, and watch him go wild? Because as far as getting lane priority, I think it's actually maybe difficult, especially in the mid lane with Crown Sylas, against what CLG has put together in terms of team fighting and initiation.
Sejuani also being one of those champions that Wiggily has popped off on time and time again. We've seen the man do plenty of work with this champion, and I'm excited to see him on something with more engaged potential than a Rek'Sai, as we already talked about. OpTic Gaming, again, we're going to be looking at this team that has never been in playoffs before to make changes based on game number 1, to make things happen here as we head into game number 2 and reset mentally.
So my woe was unrelated to what you were saying. This is Predator Sejuani. So we have seen the adaptation of moving away from Big Dokes, shout out in the crowd. We've seen the adaptation to move away from Aftershock when you're up against Trundle. People have done Hail Blade, people have doing complete footwork. This is essentially a similar style, but it's more priority towards early ganking than it is towards the dueling. You know, Fleet Footwork keeps you healthy and you're clear. Hail of Blades helps you stack the passive and fight early. This is going to help him gank, and I'm actually so excited to see how this pans out.
And as you discussed, one of the keystones on CLG, important to point out the 2 others that can sometimes shift. PowerOfEvil playing the Comet Azir, meaning it's more of that bursty style as opposed to the lethal tempo, which lets him really pop off with attack speed later on in fights. Stixxay with lethal tempo on the Varus means it will be on hit, traditional type of AD carry type of build with the Varus as opposed to pure poke lethality.
And it's also Klepto Camille, you know, another more atypical style. This is 2 games in a row now that Ruin has gone for that Klepto, really valuing all the additional gold and items that he can stack up. We'll see how effective it is going to be. You know, we know that Jace can farm that off of Poppy very easily, but are you going to trade enough on the Camille to really get value from this? You know, compared to some of the other really popular ones like Press the Attack or even Comet.
Yeah, I think he'll have to do a lot with the jungle pressure and how much Wiggily decides to go up there early, because if Camille can get any type of lead early, then you'll start getting those Klepto procs. And I like what we're seeing in the bottom lane there, where both lanes trying to deny the Zyra plant spawns. That's why Biofrost wasn't there to pull his duo lane. That's why Wiggily is starting topside as well, because in this double range support matchup, so much priority can be gained by being to the lane early, and both teams going all in on the early lane.
Arrow and Big trying to not be scared away by those seeds that were placed down by Biofrost. I always enjoy watching a bottom lane between 2 marksmen who normally excel early on. Arrow's getting the better of Stixxay here early. Throwing out a couple more axes onto the minions as they back away. CLG won't find too much more here to be talked about just yet, as both junglers are clearing through their jungles completely. You can see Wiggily going towards the Krugs, Gromp and Blue having already been cleared out by Meteos as well.
Yeah, there's so many cool little optimizations and choices both sides have actually made. You can see, you know, even the OpTic bottom lane, it is actually going to be Doran's shield for the Draven to help deal with that poke, alongside Guardian on the Morgana. So again, this is similar to what we've seen out of Lux and some of these range champions in poke style of builds. You know, this is going to be more effective. So it's just all to help deal with the Varus and Zyra.
And you can see right now, Big had just walked up into the CLG jungle, placed a ward down at the blue buff. He can see that the buff is still there. He knows Wiggily has yet to make his way down towards this bottom side. He's not going for some quick, clear path to make a quick gank bottom. Yeah. And they'll be able to see when he does finally start that up.
Yeah, looking at the early lanes for CLG, both mid and top are pushed in, so basically Wiggily just decided to do a full clear instead and work towards bot side. The risk there would be of meteos to try something to get an early gang top side, but I actually like the Wiggily to not go for that.
Arrow is so scary with these axes. This is what Draven does best, just boom, boom, boom.
And this is actually so problematic because Stixxay got poked off before the wave arrived at the turret. So there is potential for him to miss a lot of these minions. You know, this is where he's trying to catch up.
Yeah, and Meteos is invading right now. He's actually trying to push him off of blue buff, and I think he's going to get it if he lands the smite.
Oh, but it is secured by Wiggily. Nice done there with a flail.
That could have been disastrous based off the bottom lane pressure from Meteos if he could have gotten the blue and the Gromp because he was already level 4. But clutch of Wiggily to kind of stay in the game there is basically the bottom lane getting chunked out so much gave Meteos the green light to invade.
You gotta love it when your laners give you that priority as a jungler to know, hey, nobody's gonna collapse. This one's all up to you. Meteos knows he's the better duelist on this trundle. Ruin top side here, trading back and forth with Dhokla. There's that physical damage shield that you were talking about earlier, Azael. Means Dhokla does not want to go in for any sort of a trade while that is active. Crown will get back here in the mid lane, has no mana left to work with on the Sylas. Wiggily, knowing that the bottom side of his jungle has already been taken or he fought for it himself, top side now securing the Scuttlecraft.
Yeah, I do wonder if we're going to see more aggression early game from CLG here because they have drafted the tools to do so. They have spotted the trundle out. Really, it's about whether or not Camille goes, Biofrost is caught.
Biofrost is out of there. Draven's mowing the lawn. First blood for OpTic Gaming.
And they were actually going to get frozen off that wave. They were trying to get the shove in, but it looks like Big just landed the ignite and gets that first blood.
Yeah, we'll have to see if he hit a binding there or what exactly happened, because Biofrost did go down without flash, so I assume the binding must have connected. And let's watch this one more time. He is on the ward. Yeah, binding straight onto him. You are so squishy, and intelligently Big drops the black shield onto Arrow, you know, so that cannot actually be peeled off. And you see the 3 stacks of Blight were there for Stixxay, but he missed the piercing arrow that was actually dodged out by Big. So I do think that by Arrow, so there was potential for a kill trade had that landed, because that is a lot of burst damage back.
And I like the fact that Biofrost did not waste his flash there. After the binding into the stand aside, there's no way you flash out of the auto attack range. Arrow's got your number one way or the other. Keep the summoner spell for next time. But CLG, they don't want to let that happen too many more times. Draven especially, considering the nature of his passive, those early kills mean so much more.
And he has the BF sword by. You know, that is the Draven dream, really. You know, getting that early first base with a BF, so much AD scaling, you know, on his kit. And the double longsword is really not going to be able to match power whatsoever.
The entirety of the gold lead for OpTic is on Arrow's Draven. The bottom lane priority has already allowed Meteos to invade blue, take Gromp. Now it means yet another neutral objective for the OpTic team. Dragon control continues to be impeccable for OpTic this series, when it had been a focus of CLG and Wiggily the entire split. CLG coming into this series with the most dragon kills of all LCS teams. That has not been the story so far this series.
An Ocean Drake is the name of the game that people usually talk about when you mention early Drakes and the ones you want to grab. But a Mountain, like what we're seeing here this game, can be very nice early on if you've got lane control and you can get some of those plates. Makes it real easy to mine that extra gold.
And it's so much about how Arrow can play around this bottom side with Meteos, because the top lane counterpick is working amazingly for CLG. So it's really about getting as much benefit out of this bottom lane before the top lane starts paying off for CLG, because it could be the battle of these two lanes. It's just OpTic has converted more so in the kills and the plates this far.
Yeah, I completely agree. You know, despite the fact that they are up, they would actually be, you know, pretty concerned, I think, with the state of top lane had bot lane not gotten that 2v2 kill. And now it is CLG looking to dive on this wave.
And remember, this Aatrox can't come back from the dead. He's going to be slammed into the ground, and Ruin will walk away casually. CLG send 3 top, and they get their man.
That was perfect timing because they stacked up this massive wave that he is now losing.
Dhokla will probably TP back in, but there's got to be a bit of hesitation here because CLG could have stuck around for another dive. They did not, so it is just 2 plates that help with that wave.
Oh, he got interrupted.
Ruin got real greedy there just to make sure that he got the plate, and he will lose his flash for that.
Yeah, it is funny because if that's solo queue, you probably don't TP back immediately because you're expecting them to get dove. That is such a common solo queue play. When you do get dove, and there's a fat wave of your turret, they know you want it, they'll just sit in that brush.
Yeah.
And then you start TPing, they walk out of the brush as the TP's going, you're like, no. Can I cancel it, please?
It's almost like you outthink yourself there. You think, okay, this is pro, so he's not going to teleport back in. So let's actually just go back to wave. And then he teleports back in and gets the wave. Yep. There was some wave stuff in the mid lane that PoE had to go back for anyway, so he's trying to maximize his farm as well. A lot of small little decisions that don't necessarily show up in the scoreboard.
Yeah, that is really interesting, because, I mean, if you lose all that experience there as Dhokla, you're probably doomed, right? You know, like, for the rest of the game. So Ruin, either way, does have a huge advantage. They got a turret play for him. He got the kill as well. So it really is kind of becoming the battle of these 2 lanes, right? You know, it's these 2 super strong members on either side, and it's going to be about which team can make the most of the advantage that they really have at this point in time.
You can see Ruin will continue zoning Dhokla away as he's so far away from the minion wave, doesn't want anything to do with the engage range of that hook shot from Camille. Bottom side, level 6 is up for everybody, means we could see some plays being made down here. Junglers not really getting involved with anything too much just yet. Wiggily still sitting on that 1 assist that he got from earlier, as PowerOfEvil will push up mid. And PowerOfEvil and Crown, as they're on the screen, I really just want to talk about what we saw from Crown last game, because remember, in a game that was very low on kill count, it was Crown getting caught out twice that was 2 of those kills before that 30-minute mark.
And you got to wonder how that plays forward into this game. Does Crown go less aggressively towards farm? And does that actually take away from his ability to get fed? Because on a champion like Sylas, even though he can let Azir push him in, take the farm afterwards, he's got to play aggressively when it comes to team fights and get in there. So Ruin was trying to make Roam down. Turns out he gets clapped on.
Ruin's going to be in some trouble here. Issues the Hextech ultimatum, but now the backup's not going to come in time. CLG backing themselves away. The Whirling Death came in, but the Stranglethorns will find their victims. It's a double kill for PowerOfEvil and a 3-for-1 for CLG.
OpTic take the fight, but the roam from Biofrost was so unexpected. They got roasted by that Stranglethorn ultimate, and the Azir damage layered on everyone.
This is what I said in Champ Select. That ulti is so good against a melee team, and OpTic find it out the hard way.
Yeah, it looks like the difference in this one, even though Ruin is the one who gets caught out, both supports ended up roaming. It's the fact that the top lane of OpTic, if you think about the grand scheme of the fight, this was a 4v3 for CLG, so many cooldowns to kill Ruin. Sejal into Zyra ult, into Azir soldiers, massive AoE that OpTic funneled into, and the numbers advantage ends up being the difference.
I mean, Arrow tried to help with the Whirling Death from bottom lane. You can see that take a bit of a chunk out of the health bars, but it's just not enough to compete with what CLG brought to the table. PowerOfEvil also enjoying not only the double kill, but the reward of the double buffs, making his laning phase that much easier. CLG now able to move up, control the bottom side of the river, control the Scuttle Crab, just in time for second Drake spawn.
There's still a Bloodthirster Draven here, so OpTic might want to fight here.
Stixxay finds his Chains of Corruption onto Big, who uses the Hourglass, the stasis, I should say, from the stopwatch to keep himself alive. But the piercing arrow and the auto attack from Biofrost to seal the deal will take him down. Meteos still here on the bottom side, trying to control this tri-brush, keep some sort of semblance of order for the side of OpTic Gaming in this bottom half of the map. Ocean Drake not going to be taken just yet, but CLG have started it up, and they won't be backing away.
And I can understand the mindset of OpTic right there. They think, okay, bottom lane is our strength. We have the Bloodthirster Draven. Let's keep this Drake control because top lane is going so astray for them. But they lose that as well. Nice juke by Dhokla. Let's see what Ruin can do.
Ruin waiting to use the Hextech ultimatum to dodge away from one of the Qs. Forces the flash out from Dhokla.
That was actually so close. Had he connected, with that hook shot, that would have been a kill. That would have been it. But Dhokla still being forced to use the flash in retreat, and Ruin is getting very close to that Triforce, which is such an insane spike for the Camille. But here this is one more time. They know Big has no flash. That is just an initiation from Stixxay. Nails the Varus ultimate, and Big just really has no way out, despite the fact they had this super strong Draven.
Yeah.
With the member going down so early, they couldn't really fight back.
It felt to me like there was some miscommunication there because Big actually used Black Shield on meteos, as meteos had the potential to opt into the 3v3, but then OpTic kind of changes their mind after the Varus ult lands on Big and back off. I think PowerOfEvil's Azir was in River, so it could have turned into a 4v3, which is why OpTic backed out, but unfortunate play there for them.
Oh boy, here comes yet another one for CLG. It's the Rift Herald summon up in mid lane, but fortunately for OpTic Gaming, they secure first turret and they get all the plate money before that 14-minute mark there in the bottom lane. Mid lane, Shelly's almost able to take down the tier 1, but almost isn't good enough. Meteos and Crown are there in time to stop the turret from falling.
Yeah, so the bot lane advantage still is extending here for Arrow. They just haven't really been having him involved in a lot of other fights, so it hasn't been as noticed, but he's 1,800 gold ahead of Stixxay. That is still an enormous advantage. They got that first turret, they got the 2v2 kill, and now the question is, where will you send the Draven? Will you send him up to the top lane, move your Aatrox down bot to try to continue pushing these towers?
Now, I want to point something out that I noticed right as you mentioned that the Trinity Force was almost online for Ruin, Azael. And the reason it's not online is because it's been slowed down a little bit for this Executioner's Calling, which is a fantastic adaptation to the state of the game by Ruin very early on to shut down healing from the entire top half of the map. Never mind, the entire part of the map, because Draven rushed Bloodthirster. 4 out of 5 of these champions heavily rely on healing. Ruin, big pickup there, making sure he's got that to shut it down.
Yeah, and a big push by CLG here in the mid lane. Had actually committed 5 people to that until Arrow clears away with an ult. But yeah, your favorite item, Azael, Executioner's Calling.
I'm the #1 fan. I mean, you're going up against Aatrox is already good there. Trundle healing off the ultimate is massive. The Kingslayer, if you're meeting a side lane against Crown, it's good there. Really, it's such a smart item purchase, and I do think that pros are, it feels like in the last month or two, starting to buy it a lot more consistently. Starting to realize the value. It's something I've had discussions with some of the analysts and coaches, and they're kind of struggle to properly illustrate just mathematically how effective it is to the pros, because most of the pros play off of field, right? And they're like, yeah, but it feels better to see a bigger number when you get Lord Dominic's, right? You don't necessarily know how it's being as effective.
Well, here's the thing. It also feels better for your opponent when they see big numbers on their heals. What if you cut those in half? Then they don't get nearly as big a numbers as you're getting. But topside, Wiggly's looking to add yet another number to his body count. If Dhokla can be dove here by Ruin shoving this wave up in time, we need a couple more auto attacks onto the minion waves to make sure it happens. Dhokla getting back now, smelling that something's up here, does not want to deal with this, and Ruin will take the tier 1.
Nice little back and forth there by Dhokla and Ruin. Ruin basically got enough chunk damage onto Dhokla that the turret dive would be possible, and then the Sejuani had been missing on the map for such a long time. It was a really smart play by Dhokla to get as many minions as possible before retreating safely.
Speaking of many minions as possible, Ruin making sure he allowed that turret to execute as many of them as he could before he put the final touches on it there, just farming up the minions from his opponent's side. In the meantime, Ruin sitting on a 30 farm lead over his opponent with Trinity Force, with Ninja Tabby, with Executioner's Calling. Very scary Camille at this point of the game. Mid lane, the same farm lead has been built for PowerOfEvil over Crown here with this Azir. Bottom side, still the only place OpTic are winning in this matchup in terms of farm, but it's only by about 15 to 20, depending on which minion wave has been farmed up first. Wiggily moving through the bottom side of the river here, trying to maintain control over this area, because once again, it's going to be very important here in about 20 seconds when Mountain Drake spawns.
Yeah, and it is concerning for Arrow, because when you have two losing solo lanes, sometimes in a team fight, they just end up getting ignored and everyone will dogpile onto you. We know how good the initiation is from the side of CLG, and Arrow is very powerful, yes, but if he goes down immediately, he really is their one source of power. He has the Bloodthirster and the Rapid Fire, so he's hit a really strong 2-item spike, but you have PowerOfEvil on 2 items, you have Rune at a really strong point in the game, and we'll see if that's going to be enough to offset it.
CLG are not afraid whatsoever of beginning this objective or the potential collapse from OpTic. They had Biofrost waiting on the side to drop down the control if they needed it. He'll be caught there between the wall. Wiggily throws out the ulti, but the Glacial Prison's not going to find anyone. OpTic with priority over the mid lane now. They move up to the tier 1. Piercing arrow's going to be fired out. PowerOfEvil over the wall. Wiggily getting himself away from the stolen Glacial Prison. Meteos now in retreat. Subjugate had been used, and a nice shutdown for Crown.
Crown having the aggression to go in there when they had the Sejuani ult advantage. None on Wiggily, one on Crown. They decided they could push up on the turret, and since Biofrost had been kind of fishing for a pick the whole time, now they might die.
Chains of Corruption coming out, dive going through. Stixxay going to be pulled back, but PowerOfEvil's able to find some big old damage. Double kill over to the Emperor of Shurima, and he will tear them to pieces. Ruin grabs the third, and OpTic are limping home.
Yeah, OpTic tried to go in for a really aggressive dive there. They had the man advantage, but both the super strong solo laners as well as the AD was still alive. It was only Biofrost missing, so if you don't immediately get those kills, the damage will be there from those solos and from that turret, and CLG turning around.
Yeah, PoE is the guy they have to worry about. With those 2 items, he is online. So watching this dive one more time, PoE had used an escape, but they haven't necessarily got him. And sure, you land a binding onto Stixxay, but he is the weakest carry of the bunch. They can't dive through the Emperor's Divide. The soul laners do collapse with a good Hextech ultimatum from Ruin, and then they just clean up afterwards. Unless OpTic can actually full kill PoE, that dive is too risky.
And I don't think you're killing him here anytime soon. Take a look on your screen as we've got a comparison between the junglers. Wiggily with a 6 out of 8 kill participation, no deaths so far. Yeah, he's a little bit behind in farm compared to Meteos, and that keeps Meteos close in gold. But in terms of overall game impact, there's no comparison so far.
Yeah, Wiggily definitely has had, I think, the advantage of these winning solos and has been able to make good on that, you know, really being a part of a lot of these team fights. But Arrow's still very strong, and they will have to continue trying to play around that strength, because one of the big problems here is that, you know, the Aatrox versus Camille matchup doesn't get better, right? You know, this is not something where Aatrox catches up late game. Camille really does just outscale you, and if you lose early, you're going to be very likely weaker for the rest of the game. And likewise, I feel similarly with Azir. I think Sylas can kind of make up for that somewhat with the playmaking if you can steal a really good ult, but it's going to be on Crown to pull off a really nice play, like the stolen Sejuani ult, to be able to kind of make up for the lack of damage compared to the Azir.
Yeah, and on the side of PoE, Azir was CLG's first pick last game, and I think we're seeing why here in Game 2, why they put such a high priority on it. We know that drafts become a lot more specialized when best of 5s come, and adaptation is key, but the prep here was, let's make sure Crown doesn't get Azir. Let's make sure PoE is very comfortable and good on Azir, and that's what he's been this game. Full mid lane control, roaming for several kills.
Biofrost tried to make a pick happen there onto Big, but a good black shield onto himself kept him plenty safe. You can see his health bar barely taking any damage. Biofrost taken very low himself from the damage coming towards him over the wall there in the Wraith Pit. He'll be sent home, and without the Strangle Thorns available, OpTic will at least feel a little bit safer here for the next 90 seconds or so, but 90 seconds is just enough time for that next objective to come online.
And we'll see who's going to be the ones to go for it. OpTic, so much pressure around this mid lane while CLG is splitting. They are in this 1-3-1 kind of formation, and sending Biofrost back to base meant they had enough to actually grab that turret. Wiggily may be getting caught out here.
But the Predator is up and the Poro is galloping. I have never seen that.
That's why you
Poro
take
run
it.
so
Coming back at him.
Well, they're not going to find anyone here just yet. Bottom side, Ruin will go tier 1 for tier 1 with OpTic over the course of the play itself. He'll grab that last link in the outer turret chain of OpTic Gaming and maintain CLG's 4,000 gold lead.
Yeah, and OpTic is going to feel like they have to do something. Notice how they're not even getting close to Ruin in the side lanes. These aren't matched 1-3-1s where the minion wave and the vision control decides whether or not you step up. This is Dhokla waiting for the wave to crash into his turret, then going there. So this gives CLG the first step in almost every single neutral objective fight because they have such powerful side lane priority.
And that's why you're seeing a 2-level advantage now for Ruin. And you know, if we can actually swap over to the gold here from the observers, you know, that when last time we checked in, we saw that it was actually Arrow, richest member in the game. There are now 2 members that have actually surpassed him over here on the side of OpTic. PowerOfEvil, very, very strong. Ruin, very, very strong as well. And yes, the Draven is going to be impactful, but it feels like they haven't been able to get much done with it.
Look at that 1v1. It's not even close. Over the wall comes Wiggily, and away goes Big's health bar. Stranglethorns come down just to make sure OpTic's not looking to go back in anytime soon. Crown is not able to do anything with the stolen Sejuani ult this time around, and CLG find a pick.
I actually really like how Biofrost is using the Zyra ultimate here. It feels like they go very aggressively for it, and then he drops it to dissuade the rest of OpTic from ever being able to re-engage the fight. They can't actually join up with their member that falls behind.
And instead of going for a 23-minute Ocean Drake, they turn directly on the Baron. They have Mountain and they have Azir so they can kill it quickly, and they have Camille ult if they want to turn.
They learned their lesson from game number 1. Baron's better than a Drake, and CLG will take it down. Now they're looking to go even further. The fight is on, and Arrow is broken. Crown's now the next target as Ruin continues to go forward. Crown's looking to turn things around, and he'll slap him down.
Nicely done there by Crown, trading it back, but still they shut down the Draven. They kill him off. They get the Baron. They take a turret. CLG are in full control, and what is with all these early Barons in playoffs?
Crown's going back. What was that?
Go for more.
Looking for big plays.
He's trying to get another one, and that was a sense of desperation, I think, from Crown because the game really just did come completely out of their hands. Thought maybe he could get a return kill on a PoE. Definitely could not, and again, we're going to watch this whole play really unfold where Ruin finally gets close to Dhokla, and you see why Dhokla is never wanting to be close to Ruin. And the rest of CLG does eventually collapse in. The Zyra ult flies into zone. Ruin holds off his ult the whole time for this moment. They think, okay, if meteos comes to steal, we'll ult him. If we get the Baron first, we can kill Arrow anyway because they still have the man advantage from the kill early.
And that was such a well-timed ult there from Ruin. You will actually follow over walls, follow the flash as he did there with the Hextech ultimatum if you time it properly. Ruin gets a little bit too hypey for his own good going down to Crown, but CLG have full control of the map. They are running this game, and PowerOfEvil finished a death cap and got the blasting wand off of that. Like, he is absurdly strong. You can't even poke them out. They have double ocean. It feels like everything is in CLG's favor.
CLG with the momentum here in the mid-game. Let's see if they can get more done with this Baron than OpTic was able to last time around. The first 3 Barons for OpTic Gaming, not accomplishing a lot. The first 2 failed to break the base. The third, they at least got in there, but they weren't really able to cripple CLG too much. PowerOfEvil's been caught out. This could be a big one here for the side of OpTic. PoE in some trouble, still having to get out here. Flash over the wall. He'll stay alive. I don't think that he's trying to back away. meteos shouldn't be able to close this distance any further. Might go for a pillar, but the tier 1 is still standing up here, and that means OpTic will not get the pick. Meanwhile, Ruin just continues doing what Ruin does, and bottom side, Dhokla just has no answer whatsoever. TP coming in mid lane. PowerOfEvil is rested up and ready to go. They'll take down the tier 3, and CLG is showing OpTic how to use a 20-minute Baron.
Pre-existing gold lead, strong initiation, not dying randomly. Those are the 3 things you need with this Baron buff.
I like number 3.
He almost did. He actually almost did, but he was able to escape with that flash, and now they can go for a dive.
All right, Wiggily misses the Glacial Prison there. That means meteos is going to be kept alive. Black Shield helping make sure of that, but the inhibitors will not sing the same song. The mid and bottom inhibitors are down. CLG has occupied OpTic's base, and they will look to take this game even further. The push continues. PowerOfEvil dashes forward, just trying to juke him out here a little bit. Not going to find much just yet. Crown fires off the Chains of Corruption, but a nice stopwatch from Stixxay will stop that in its tracks. And there come the Stranglethorns. Wiggly's into the OpTic lines. meteos on the retreat. Ruin's grabbing the kill onto Big. He's going to be kept alive by a stopwatch of his own counterattack coming out. Crown's able to shut down Wiggily, and with 2 dead for CLG, OpTic will hold the line.
Yeah, OpTic barely surviving. They're trying to chase for more, but I don't think they can get it. Now they're TPing in Crown. They want this flank and the ace.
Well, PowerOfEvil has summoned the turret. They're going to make their stand right here. Meteos in some trouble. Shut down onto PoE. Stixxay's the next target. The Crown's not able to find a whole lot. A double kill over to Stixxay. And it's so many dead on both sides. It's a bloodbath.
Explosive action there 26 minutes in after CLG made such an aggressive and likely overambitious call to try and end the game 5v5 with the last 30 seconds of their Baron buff. So Crown steals the Varus ultimate, and that's really where the fight begins. Biofrost then lands the root, and here CLG has the option of trying to end the game. If any of these kills actually fall through, if they kill Meteos right away, they probably win the game. But Ruin actually doesn't get the execution onto Arrow on the other side either. And then I do really like OpTic's choice to teleport in here and try and pick up more.
Yeah, there were very split calls there. You know, Ruin actually went into a 1v2 against Big and Arrow. He kills off Big. He has the Hextech ultimatum for Arrow, but no one else was there to help him out. And then this TP flank, risky, but you have to go for these sorts of plays when you're this far behind. And they look for that winning play. Just barely dying there. Arrow knows one more auto attack, he probably could have healed back up with that Bloodthirster.
And you can see the frustration on his face. OpTic needs everything they can get. Every death means so much. And speaking of deaths, that ace was the first time in this game 3 members of CLG, their mid, their AD carry, their jungler, had died at all.
Yeah, and OpTic absolutely has had their backs against the wall. That was the first instance where they were able to fight back, and they're going to be stuck in this perpetual state of defense once again with 2 inhibitors down.
And I think it's so hard now to win from this spot when you look at actually, you know, these items here on Ruin. He has his GA now, you know, look at the items over on the Azir as well. You have such ridiculously strong solos. Ruin can essentially just run it down for the Arrow kill. If you can get a trade kill on Draven, the CLG will run over the team fight, and you have the GA to be able to kind of throw yourself in that backline with Reckless Abandon, so it becomes so difficult to even approach a potential Baron area.
Compare that to the Aatrox with Black Cleaver, Death Dance Garage Sale, and a stopwatch. It's just not enough. CLG now on to Baron for the second time as it spawns, but OpTic are willing to contest.
This time COD doesn't actually need the Baron, though. They need Ruin to buy time to go in. The ultimate there from Stixxay definitely decreases the amount of threat they have. I mean,
they don't care.
They can get it because OpTic backed off, but that's because Ruin is applying the pressure in the base.
And it was shredded so quickly by the combined might of Varus and Azir. Ruin only needed to hang out there in the base for a moment to provide that pressure.
Yeah, I mean, you can't 1v1 Ruin. There's only one Nexus turret. He will just straight up kill Dhokla under that. They lost their inhibitor, their last inhibitor to minions as well. They are getting...
Meteos is trapped.
Oh, Meteos is found out by Ruin and Wiggily. Stun comes through, damage followed up, Hextech ultimatum is issued, and Meteos is sent to the grave. 40 seconds until the trundle is back up. It's a Baron up CLG squad, 5 men strong in the OpTic base. The charge is in, the fight is on. Big gets himself away. Wiggly's gonna be backing up with a Gargoyle Stoneplate, and Dhokla is eviscerated. Arrow's on the run, Crown is down, and that is it. Double kill over to the side of PowerOfEvil and CLG, and they will win Game 2.
And that is such a heavy blow to OpTic. Not just the fact that CLG is now up 2-0 in the series, but the fact that they did it against Dhokla's signature Aatrox pick. They had the counter pick that could take them down, and the fact that it was a quick and decisive victory for CLG.
We talked in the beginning of the game about how OpTic wanted to play around that winning bottom lane. We saw the 2v2 kill there for the first blood, but it just didn't matter when the solo lanes won as hard as they did for CounterLogic Gaming.
Yeah, I mean, this game, you know, I think the score line is all about PoE, but when you talk about pressure applied, it really was all about Ruin. It was all about the Camille pick. You know, he got to such a point where Aatrox can't even farm at his turret anymore. When you're in that point of the game, you're auto-conceding that Baron because he can't even hold at Nexus turrets, right? When you're basically checkmated. Like, there's just nothing that they could really do without CLG throwing their lives away and getting picked off to buy themselves time.
Yeah, after the game 1, which CLG was defending the entire game,
Yeah.
never breaking, bending a lot, but never actually breaking, to then bounce back with a game like this has to just give them so much confidence towards game 3.
And that's match point, right? I mean, if you're OpTic, you can't let any more of these slip. It's time to step up or go home. But for more on how game 2 shook out, we're going to throw things back to the State Farm Analyst Desk.
Thank you, Captain Flowers. It's going to feel good for CLG to push it to match point with that kind of a victory over OpTic Gaming. Very much in contrast to the first game. CLG largely in control for a majority of this game. We will talk about the early game and how they had to navigate that, but first I want to take a little look at Champion Select.
Yeah, because CLG did what everyone said not to do, which is leave Aatrox up versus OpTic, but they do that because they have the Camille in their back pocket, and by banning the Jarvan and taking the Sejuani in first rotation, they push Meteos onto what they thought would be a Sylas, but then he goes for the Trundle. And then to make things even crazier, you have the Draven in the bot lane with the Morgana to potentially stop any sort of weird counter picks from coming in. And they tried the Zyra, which is a really volatile matchup when you already have a carry split push top laner that wants your jungler attention.
But the value in this Zyra is that you're up against 3 melees, and Aatrox, Trundle, and Sylas. They just have no way of getting in when it comes to that group phase. And I really would have liked to have seen Meteos on the Sylas instead of the Trundle here because it was just so bizarre. You know the Camille is coming. Camille against Trundle is just, you can do whatever he wants.
Yeah, I think if Meteos was a more dive-heavy, aggressive jungler, like, think of how many times they could have dove bot in situations like this, where Stixxay's at literally 10% of the tower. If that's a Jarvan, which I know got banned, but let's say a more aggressive jungler, maybe even...
well, the Sylas,
the
right?
Sylas,
if the Sylas stays in his hands. Unfortunately, he's relegated to jungle invades.
Yeah, and this is what happened in the CLG tiebreaker versus C9. Their bot lane got absolutely dumpstered with the early level 3 dive that wasn't possible here. And the bot lane continued to do work with the solo kill.
I mean, this is honestly the beginning of the top lane advantage to snowball for CLG. They even had PoE, so they knew that this was definitely the right call. Everybody on board, and a lot of it came down to giving Crown the Sylas so that he had the confidence going up against PoE. This was the first week 2 win champion for OpTic against CLG specifically, but then they don't realize that Zyra is already here. Surprise.
But why would you play this fight if you're on OpTic's side? OpTic has a humongous bot lane lead. BF sword at 6 minutes. Why are you there at all?
I've asked that a lot about
It's actually crazy. Like, I'm watching BF sword 6-minute Draven, bot lane's over, you know?
Yeah.
Make figure 8s down there, it's over for them. And it's up to CLG to make the reverse play happen top side. But if you're swinging into CLG's top side, what are you doing?
Right, but I think that's a very important thing to call out, right? While the bot lane was going in favor of OpTic, that Camille pick and the attention from Wiggily to the top lane really set the tone for a 1v1 lane that could no longer, you know, be managed by an Aatrox.
Yeah, I mean, Rune ended up taking both top and bot outer turrets by himself by forcing Aatrox out of lane. Like, he dumpstered Dhokla in this matchup.
Now, also, that said, I do want to talk about the mid laners. One of the biggest plays within this game was a 4v5 defense from CLG around their mid turret. PowerOfEvil coming up big on the Azir.
PoE's just having a field day today. The second game of Azir, I mean, I voted him into my pro teams, and he has been so consistent in just being a ridiculous threat that for some reason OpTic is not really acknowledging. They keep forgetting that Azir's damage is just gonna melt through these melee champions that have to go through soldiers.
I mean, CLG's entire new team was built around PoE. Like, they wanted a carry from the mid lane, and that's what PoE became throughout the season. And especially this game showed, like, he had a 15-minute 2-item completion.
It's disgusting.
Disgusting,
That
actually.
stat line is actually so gross. But again, just kind of showing that CLG, when firing on all cylinders with, you know, their players on their respective power picks, they can make things happen even being a man down there in the mid lane. That would be the catalyst for them to really snag control over the game. 3 Drakes to 1 Drake would move on to the Barons as well. Here's the pick that brings it home for that Baron.
Yeah, once again, Rune kind of starting things off on his own. At this point, it's almost a 4v5. Dhokla is in full retreat mode. Wiggily just follows up quite nicely.
Right, he has to pop the ult just to run.
Yeah, and you kill big. Now that some of their vision control down, everyone's low. They're going to keep chasing and eventually decide, all right, well, we've got enough of an advantage for this fight. We can just go right to Baron.
And this feels awful as Arrow, because at this point, like, he can't do anything. The solo laners overtake the game, and he's the type of guy who, like, you know, in solo queues, like, better bot wins. Because he's humongous, right? He's got 2 full items, but he literally can't walk up in any of these fights without dying.
The team is not set up to let him walk up, is my grab, and they didn't even play around him, right? So you picked a Draven, and normally they go Draven Nautilus, to try to allow Big to make a lot of plays in the bottom lane. That's the MO for OpTic, but when you select this way, the Draven's just stuck on his own.
Yeah, they didn't want to get counterpicked by taking the Nautilus and getting Morgana counterpicked by Biofrost. They just took the Morgana themselves, but then they lost a lot of what their agency is in the lane, as well as the fact, like we said, the Trundle can't do anything. So what could have been a huge bot side snowball just came apart.
Yeah, it ended up being like they just had no initiator when they had the lead, and then when they fell behind, they had nothing to work with.
And this it begins to feel like almost an impossible situation. You couldn't see me do the air quotes I just did there. Where OpTic has now been perfectly positioned to win game 1, and CLG claws it back. And then CLG demonstrates the kind of control that is more typical of this team throughout Summer Split in game 2 to push us to now series point. And so from that perspective, I can only imagine the mental gymnastics that OpTic is having to do to keep themselves, you know, on a level playing field, knowing they have to put 3 wins together here in a row.
Yeah.
What mental gymnastics are you going?
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
right.
no. I can admit to being wrong. I can admit to being
Whoa, it's
wrong.
not even over.
Yeah, I can.
You gotta back your
I'm wrong.
team.
Yeah, no.
You flip-flopped into OpTic.
I flip-flopped into an error. That's what I did, right? So I saw it, I flip-flopped, made a mistake. CLG looks so good right now. The confidence is definitely on their side. The momentum is there. And I think they picked up the slack from game 1. So they really adapted really well from what I thought was a big problem in game 1, not giving Wiggily the agency with the pick, as well as less priority on objectives. Flipped it completely all around. They recognized it, fixed it, and therefore I think they'll win game 3.
Okay, well, there you have it. Wow. CLG is back to Blue's side here, and so, Mark, you were the one that called the 3-0. Do you align with a lot of what Crumbs was saying here in terms of how it's going to be all tied up in a pretty bow?
For the most part, the one question is what they do with the Aatrox. They banned Blue side last time. I expect they'll do that again, but they still need to patch up a couple of the other problems because you can't emulate this red side draft going back to Blue side. So they're going to have to change things up from game 1.
Yeah. Well, I gotta say here, all the mental gymnastics. I think OpTic's bot lane has been looking pretty good. Even game 1, game 2, they've been doing great, like a lot better than I first expected. So if you're gonna win, I'd say your bot lane is showing a lot of promise this series. Try to play around them a little bit more, and I think that maybe doing that, they have a good shot. You know, I think a lot of reason why the first game
Strong
went
language there to close that point out. Thank you.
I mean, I voted for CLG for a reason,
maybe
okay?
if they do, they have a shot. All right.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're all on the same page. CLG are on the edge of sweeping their way to the semifinals. See if OpTic can dig deep and fight back in game 3 after this.